Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody, where today we are talking about how to fix Chelsea. Coming up on today's show, we talk about whether Enzo Maresca has a future at Stamford Bridge.
Chelsea have kind of pigeonholed themselves into a position where this is all they can attract and this is all they will attract.
The dream striker for Chelsea to bring in this summer.
I'm a little bit confused by that because he's not an out-and-out goal scorer. He plays kind of in the pockets where you have Cole Palmer.
And the big name player that has to go.
You're looking at Sancho, he's got to be sent back.
Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody. And joining myself and Mikey McCubbin today, we have Matisse Broderick, Chelsea influencer, Chelsea content creator. Matisse, welcome back. How are you?
It's a pleasure to be back. Mad circumstances because the league is looking a bit ropey for us, but that means there's plenty to talk about. So yeah, looking forward to it.
I do think it is one of the most interesting teams to talk about and follow at the moment, Chelsea. And yeah, let's get into what is going on at Chelsea at the moment, because the Premier League's up in the air, still in the Conference League, of course, but some massive games coming up for Chelsea. Let's talk, Matisse, first of all, about Enzo Maresca. We saw on Monday Night Football, Jamie Carragher suggesting there was maybe a little bit of a disconnect between the crowd and the manager. Where do you think most Chelsea fans, and where are you at with whether Maresca is the right man?
I saw that analysis, and Chelsea fans historically have not warmed to that type of football as quick as our traditional kind of maybe transitional counter-attack or defensively solid football. I remember Sarri, he got a lot of boos, he got a lot of kind of heat for that football as well in his one and only season. Maresca obviously wants us to play out from the back. He wants us to control games, use the goalkeeper heavily. I think for me with Maresca, you're judging him almost on a curve, but it's not really fair because you're judging him on Chelsea's expectations, and then you have to match that with what would you expect from a manager in his first Premier League season from Leicester in the Championship. You're expecting mistakes, you're expecting development, you're expecting him to have to learn along the way. That's not something I'd co-sign for a Chelsea project that's a few years deep. A Chelsea project that needs to kind of see results now. You need Champions League qualifications. You can't really be playing around with that financially. They've sold the women's team. FFP, they're always dancing with it. We saw it last season with PSR. So I think it's unfair to judge Maresca as harshly as you have to, almost, because of everything around the club. But that first third of the season, such a great start. Terrible winter period, which, again, historically, Chelsea managers always struggle. Lampard in his second season, I remember that's when the wheels fell off. Quite a struggle. Everybody always goes down in that winter period. And then now the final period, the fixtures coming up look really bad. For me personally, I wouldn't sack him just purely because I don't want that to be the headline. I don't want the responsibility of this season to fall on his shoulders per se. I feel like there's a bigger thing at play for Chelsea. The recruitment. Last summer, you're buying Felix, you're buying Renato Vega, Dewsbury Halls, you're getting yourself tied up in PSR problems. You're then loaning out a lot of those players or some of those players 6 months later. That's not a project for me. That's not a clear sign of this is what we're doing, everything strategic. I'm looking at the squad balance. I'm looking at starting the season with 4 10s. And Nkunku was always a 10, shown it at Leipzig. I'm looking at Chukwuemeka, good player, but there's no striker for Jackson. There's no option to even rotate apart from an 18-year-old Gyu. That's a miss site. The goalkeeping position wasn't rectified. Sanchez was never at the level for me. And I think, again, this season he's been very ropey. So I feel like if I'm always looking at Chelsea's best teams, I'm looking at Mourinho, I'm looking at Conte. They needed top players. Why would a manager in his first season in the Premier League not need top players? So I feel for him at times. He doesn't make it easy because he's calling out the fans and, he's saying things in presses that people won't agree with. Sometimes he's contradicting himself, but the overriding feeling is someone's got to take responsibility for the amount of money spent and the lack of quality to show for it.
Speaking of that, how are you feeling about the run-in? Because Chelsea's remaining fixtures. Liverpool, Newcastle, Forest, and Fulham still to come. 3 of those teams you've got to play away. Out of all the remaining fixtures, including against Man United and Everton, Newcastle, the only team that Chelsea have beaten in the reverse fixture. You haven't beaten a team in the top half of the table since December the 1st, I believe, against Aston Villa. Do you back Chelsea to get Champions League football at this point, even with that 5th place, securing it?
Not after Ipswich. I just feel like Chelsea against top 6 teams, the quote-unquote big 6, they've struggled this season. It's been a lot of draws. There's been defeats. Only Tottenham have they done the double over. City, they're the only big 6 team, I think, not to pick up any points against City. Chelsea they haven't shown in the winter period and the recent months, and the lack of form from Cole Palmer and Jackson's misfiring, on top of the defensive issues, which were always there, regardless of 5 clean sheets in 6 prior to the Ipswich game. They were against Southampton's, Leicester, Legia Warsaw's. You've got to look at it. The quality of the teams coming up, and we've seen everybody's fighting. Regardless of the relegation battle being done, Everton still want points. They're just troublemakers now for no reason, really. You're looking at, Wolves against Tottenham. So because we're getting towards the end of the season and everybody's, fighting for points regardless of their situation, do I trust Chelsea in crunch time with a really young squad that's misfiring and doesn't have really any clinical nature about them? Their conversion rate is really poor. I think only Leicester have got a worse conversion rate in the Premier League in 2025. You're looking at the defence, the goals being shipped, individual errors. You can't win games without being good in both boxes, especially not games at St James's Park. Games at the City Ground, last game of the season. They could be fighting for a Champions League place. They might need to win. Liverpool at home, there'll be a guard of honour. Manchester United at home, there'll be a low block. Everton, low block. I can't see it. I can see a couple wins max, and I don't think that'll be enough.
Mikey, I think it's worth touching on what Chelsea should have been expecting this season, because actually last summer, in terms of net spend, they only spent £40 million. But obviously over the previous 2 seasons, the spending's been, absolutely vast. They've brought in 47 different players since Clearlake Capital arrived at the club. Matisse touched on it earlier, but there's been some notable misses: Koulibaly, Sterling, Mudryk, João Felix twice. The list goes on.
Yeah.
But what was fair to expect? And do you think the fact that Man City, by their own standards, have had such a uniquely bad season, the fact that Arsenal have been off it, the fact that, by their standards again, the fact that Man United and Spurs have been so woeful, do you think there's any excuse not to make it, especially given there's 5 Champions League spots?
No, I think you have to look at it. You have to look at it as the overall project, and like the spending since 2022 means that Chelsea they desperately need to qualify for the Champions League. And I think we said at the start of the season, or I did, that if they weren't challenging, strongly for the Champions League, then the season could be considered a flop. I think, in my heart of hearts, I still thought, the job that Maresca was given, it would be harsh to judge him as a flop if he didn't make the Champions League. Because, like you're saying, Matisse, it's a really difficult job to take on for a manager of Maresca's experience. Coming up from the Championship, it's a difficult job for any manager. Pochettino, with far more experience, found it tough last season. But equally, the progress that we saw from Cole Palmer in his first season at Chelsea, the progress that we saw from Nicolas Jackson, especially at the start of this season, what we saw from Malo Gusto towards the end of last season as well. There were some real bright spots, the progression we've seen from Caicedo as well. Like, there is a spine, that there should be a spine forming in this Chelsea team, right? And I guess there's quite a lot of pressure on Levi Colwill at the back as well. And, him and Tosin's partnership, I think, has rightly come under a lot of scrutiny of late. But again, that's a 21-year-old centre-back who's being asked to be a leader back there. I guess also, Cucurella, has come on leaps and bounds the last few years. So it's not like this Chelsea team is bereft of quality. There are the makings of a very solid team here, and we saw that at the start of the season. So I think the expectation has to be qualifying for the Champions League. You can say that for, if you compare their spending, say, to Man United's in the last few years, you can say the same for Man United, but that's a club that has, even more deep-rooted problems. And I think, to compare them to Man United is almost silly. Like, Chelsea should, a well-functioning club should be performing a lot better than them. So in a season like this, where, like you say, there's been a lot of teams underperforming, and we've got Nottingham Forest looking odds on to finish at least 4th at this moment in time. I know they had a blip on the weekend. Like a team of Chelsea's stature, and the investment that they've made over the last few years should certainly be up there, if not challenging for a title. Back in November, Chelsea were ahead of Arsenal, and it wasn't like a total surprise given their performances at the start of the season. That's really where they should be at, given the transitional phase that everyone else is in. And for all the misses that Chelsea have made in the transfer market, they have signed over the last nearly 3 years a lot of very promising young talent, which at this point should be coming to fruition. So that's where I think there seems to be this kind of a bit of disconnect in terms of first of all, the style of play, but then also, if you want a project, you need to kind of stick to that style of play, right? So I guess this is the problem with Maresca. Like, how long can Chelsea persist with him if they don't meet their aims of making the Champions League this year, which of course have big financial implications in the future? If the fans don't like the style of play, and the style of play also isn't delivering results, I worry. I just struggle to see, if he's kept on this summer, how long into next season does Maresca get given? Because if there's, if a bad feeling continues to build around Stamford Bridge, and they don't achieve results, and they're not playing the football that excites fans, then it just feels like there are no boxes being ticked there.
Yeah, my thing is with Chelsea's shortlist last summer, I believe Kieran McKenna was on that list. Vincent Kompany has been linked previous. Thomas Frank. It's not like Chelsea are linked with Inzaghi, Simeone, serial winners. So for me, if you're sacking Maresca, you must be bringing in a significant upgrade. Somebody that's going to come into that dressing room, command respect immediately, and put his authority on that team. That's not what Chelsea are currently attracting. Not just because of that's the targets, those list of names that I've given, those are the managers that they're seeking out, but also managers going the other way are saying, I don't want to manage that group of players that you've assembled. I don't want to come into a team that's got financial limitations now because of the money that's been spent and the issues of dealing with UEFA, because you're making European competition potentially, but you're spending a lot of money. They're rejected by Nagelsmann, rejected by Enrique. Flick wouldn't go anywhere near, and he's moved on. So the level of manager that you're looking at to replace Maresca to really make a massive difference isn't out there anymore. So now I have to weigh up, are you going to restart with a new style of play, a new philosophy, a new identity, a new manager, and probably a transfer window that will again be heavily youth-led and heavily, potential and development? Or are you going to see if this manager learns from his mistakes in his second season, kicks on it and impresses? Because again, it's his first Premier League season, so you'd expect some sort of upward trajectory. As much as you see it with the young players, maybe there's been improvement for Caicedo this season, Enzo Fernandez, Madueke statistics have been better. You'd expect the manager to also improve as well. So yeah, for me, I just feel like Chelsea have kind of pigeonholed themselves into a position where this is all they can attract, and this is all they will attract because of the way they've decided to operate.
Because of the turmoil. I wanted to talk to you about the Conference League, because I think from a neutral's perspective, or most people outside of the club, they expected Chelsea to win the Conference League. You've won every game so far. You're coming up against, on the other side of the draw, a Fiorentina side that I think has spent £3 million net in the last 3 seasons. Betis have made a profit in that time. Chelsea, completely different ballpark in terms of their spending. And it does feel like Maresca in the last few weeks has almost been preparing his side for the Conference League rather than the Premier League. We saw Palmer and Jackson rested against Brentford, used in the second half. We've seen Reece James and Gusto not starting against Ipswich, and Chalobah playing at right back, and that causing a number of issues.
Yeah.
Do you think he's almost trying to get a Conference League on his CV so it looks better in the future if he is to lose his job? Or do you think he's just trying to keep both competitions very much alive, and actually it's caused a little bit of a suffering in the Premier League?
Yeah, I had a massive disagreement with the way he was approaching his pressers earlier on in the season, because it was almost being fed down from him from the higher ups that Champions League qualification via the league wasn't mandatory, wasn't essential, which it has to be. You don't have no front of shirt sponsor and saving up for a Champions League package and then not qualify for said Champions League. So now I think he understands that has to be the expectation, regardless of what you've been told or who's the mouthpiece, who's feeding you down information. That's what the fans demand. That's what they're going to judge you on. So I think he's trying to juggle both. Reece James has obviously had a lot of injury issues, so you've got to manage his minutes. I have no problem with that. I don't want to see him out for the rest of the season. We've seen Fofana already in that situation. He kind of returned early from an injury that he had, and then now he's gone and got surgery. Lavia's out injured again. I think Jackson, after the international break, and Palmer were just coming back off knocks and niggles as well, injuries. So I understand the rotation. Maybe he wanted to kill that first leg against Legia Warsaw as well and go pretty strong just to get that game, finished. Now on this Thursday coming, or whenever this is released, that should be a very easy game to progress through, being 3-0 up in the first leg.
Keep you fresher for Fulham this weekend.
Exactly. But I feel like, again, because he's in a position where he's experiencing European and Premier League, even though that that standard of European football is really low in regards to the quality we have. It's almost like playing, in second gear at times, and we could still win 3-0. That's still his first time experiencing how to rotate and juggle between the two. Much more experienced managers are Peps are more versed in this. So again, it's just part of the learning process for him. And it's frustrating for Chelsea fans when you're seeing lineups and you're like, why has he done that? Why has he not done? Most of the time, even if I don't agree with it, logically I can understand where he's coming from or justify it. And because Chalobah, for instance, against Ipswich is playing as a right back, but we know Chelsea move into a 3, Cucurella goes into midfield, so he's basically playing as a wide centre back. That's a position he can play. So it can make sense. It just depends on the results. If you don't get the results, it doesn't make sense, So yeah.
Very easy in hindsight for sure. I mean, we've talked a lot about the negatives so far of Chelsea's season, but Matisse, what have you seen that's the big improvement from Pochettino this year? What have been the positives? I would guess that it would probably be the defence as a whole and the defensive numbers, because you conceded so many goals under Pochettino last year.
Yeah, last year defensively it was insane.
Yeah.
It was the worst Chelsea Premier League season on record defensively. They were just conceding from every angle, from every opportunity, every set piece. This season, set pieces I haven't felt on edge as much defensively. We're not conceding from corners as much as we was from wide free kicks, which is definitely a positive. It's weird. I don't trust the defense, but we are conceding less goals. I don't trust them individually to not make individual errors, to not pass the ball out to opposition players. But collectively, they have managed to be better. So that is an improvement for sure. I think that comes from having more possession or more control. That's something that he wants. So we don't maybe take as many risks as we did on a Pochettino. When we were playing that kind of basketball, end-to-end football, it was kind of just up and down, up and down. Caicedo's getting exposed. There's more transitions for us, more goals maybe, or more excitement, more 4-4 draws, but there's also more goals conceded because you're more open. Now we've gone down a more conservative, keep the ball, really be very clear about your intentions with the ball and how you're going to move it. But that is also a lot of frustration for the fans because they want the ball moved quickly. So I feel like, again, winning football for fans is all they want. It's very difficult sometimes to know, as a football fan, what do you really want? Do you want that end-to-end? And that comes at a price. Or do you really want the control? And that also comes at a price. Really what you want is win. If you win, everything's fine. If you don't, it's not. So again, I think the football, it suits certain players. I think Enzo's improved this season. Enzo Fernandez, he's been amongst the goals a bit more. I think he's been taking more control of games. I think he's been creating more chances. Statistically, like you said, Chelsea have been creating a lot of chances. I think they're second for big chances, second for chances created. Palmer is just behind Salah for big chances created. He's just behind Bruno Fernandes for chances created. But yet, when you look at his assists, they're way off. I mean, he's not going for Henry's record. He's not going for Kevin De Bruyne's, joint record. So the conversion is the problem. And Ipswich was a classic example of that. Despite the fact that, their goalkeeper Palmer was incredible, you've got to take your chances. Jackson up front can't be taking 5 shots and not hitting the target once. So some of this has got to be on the players. Pedro Neto, 60 million. You've got to deliver. Those crosses can't be overhit. You've got to really hit those shots properly. I'm seeing Elise's, far corners. I'm seeing Kvaratskhelia off of PSG, near post off. Where has the magic gone? Where's the individual brilliance gone? I can't just be thinking you got to walk that ball in every single time. There's also got to be players at Chelsea Football Club delivering on that level. That's you got to provide that.
On the subject then, and especially in terms of the attack, but all over the pitch, are there players who you think Chelsea needs to move on from this summer?
A lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Go for it.
There's a lot of players. I mean, there's players coming back. There's Raheem Sterling. There's Kepa. There's players there that have to be moved on. I think Chukwuemeka's got to go because he's not going to get the game time. João Felix has got to go. He's got to find a home. He's got to take a step down for me in terms of the status of clubs that he goes to. He's got to go to a club where he's almost going to be the focal point. The team's built around him. Then you're looking at Sanchez in goal. I think he's definitely got to be moved on. Badiashile, Disasi, they need to be moved on. I even look at Mudryk. I mean, that situation, he's currently suspended, but he hasn't delivered on the pitch regardless of that situation.
These are some big losses.
Yeah, it is. They're gonna have they're gonna have to
tough to sell this many players in the summer window.
It is,
well.
and during a Club World Cup year. So it's impossible. This is not going to happen. Chelsea are going to be left with players going into the last day, deadline day. We're going to have a lot of fun here. You know what I mean? We're going to have a lot to talk about. We always do. That's how I keep getting on here. We got so much to talk about. But, you're looking at Sancho. He's got to be sent back. You're looking at so many players that Chelsea have recruited that they don't make sense for the manager. Renato Vega, he's at Juventus. It's 6 months after signing. And I've probably forgotten so many. So there's a lot of players.
I mean, you say Sancho there has to be sent back. You really wouldn't, for 25 million, you don't think Sancho has shown enough in this first season? Because we've seen glimpses, obviously, struggled for consistency. But
for me, the 25 million is not the issue. It's the wages. His wages are astronomical. He'd have to take a massive wage cut, which I'm not sure if he'd take. And my thing is with Sancho is that I'm a massive fan of him. When he was at Dortmund, even last season when he was at Dortmund on loan, I've always been, singing his praises. I've always wanted him to show why Manchester United paid the amount of money he did, because when he was at Dortmund with Haaland, he was absolutely unbelievable. He's one of the best under 23 players in the world. He was spoken about in those realms. But I feel like there's a gear that he can't go into now. I've seen it up close, and he just doesn't take the game by the scruff of the neck. He doesn't take responsibility. He doesn't take shots. He doesn't make himself the main man. It's almost like he's a supporting act all the time. And you can't be a supporting act when sometimes you're the only one on stage and the mic, say something. And he doesn't say anything, So it's like, for me, I don't need any more squad players. I don't need any more players that need to be carried. I don't need any more passengers. I need top players. We've got plenty of development players, plenty of Estevals coming in, Quendes coming in, loads of young players, loads of players that are going to need time, and I need someone that's going to deliver 20 goals from out wide. That's got to be the ambition, because Chelsea don't have a striker that's putting the ball in the back of the net on a frequent basis. He's more of, again, a supporting cast. He's creating for others. He carries, he dribbles, he receives, links up in Jackson. But where are the goals? And the goals have got to come from out wide as well as up front as well.
For sure. Before we get into, we're going to suggest some players that Chelsea could look at this summer in a range of positions. We'll get Matisse's thoughts on all of them. Just quickly, when you mentioned 20 goals a season, just quickly on Cole Palmer's current form, what do you kind of put that down to? Is he just trying too hard? Is it the lack of options around him? Is it slower play, creating more cramped environment? What do you put it down to?
I look at Cole Palmer, and he came through Man City. So he's used to playing against low blocks. The pace of the game drops a little bit, and you've got to find your way through. So I wouldn't look at the lack of basketball and think he doesn't know the environment of slow down and pick your passes. He's a very creative player. He's very good on the ball. He's got a great touch. He's got a great eye for a pass. We've seen plenty of chances created statistically this season, as we did last. We've seen plenty of incredible moments from him last season. I think this season, the confidence is definitely shot in this bad run. He's definitely not as clinical as he was. I think I saw a statistic where he's taken 39 shots since the start of the year. And the next person to not score with that many shots is now Kudus at 17. So his shooting has regressed massively over this period. And that's his responsibility. The manager and the team, they put you in these positions, they create chances for you. You've got to score. He missed a penalty. He's not striking the ball as cleanly. He's not picking his corners as much. He's hitting it high and wide. So that's on him. I think a lot of people, they'd like to blame the manager. They'd like to blame the system, this, that, and the third. Obviously, protect Palmer. I get it, because he's a great player and he's been brilliant for us. But you've got to still put some of the responsibility at his doorstep. And then when I look at statistically on the chances created and the amount of opportunities he's still making for others, and then the conversion of the entire team and the lack of goals, or the lack of, outside of Cucurella and Enzo, the lack of consistency in finishing, that's where he won't get his assists. That's where I feel sorry for him, because now you are creating, but the assists don't show that you are. So statistically, you look worse than really you should be. So I think it's a blend of multiple things. People feel that he should be playing on the right, or why is he playing in the left half space when he should be in the right half space? We never had this issue 20 years ago. What's going on? Whoa, left, right, half space. He's multifaceted. He's multi-positional. I've seen this guy at Man City play left wing. I've seen him play right wing last season against Arsenal at home last season, false 9, 10. I've seen him pick up all these different pockets. I've seen him take shots from the left. I've seen him take shots from the right, cross from the left, cross from the right. He can play, in my opinion, anywhere. I don't see him as a system player, and I don't want him to become a system player purely because that's the era of football we're in. Because that wasn't an excuse for players like him, Mavericks, 10, 15 years ago.
Do you think that could potentially be a problem? Like now, 9, 10 months into Maresca's reign, do you feel like maybe that has been, I don't know, he has been coached out of being a bit of a maverick there? I mean, not necessarily that that's reflecting in his performances, but certainly in his output.
It's tough because you could say that for certain games, for sure, where he's stifled and he looks stiff and he can't seem to get himself into the game, and the game's passed him by. But then there are some games where he is on the end of chances and he's got to play that pass to Nkunku in front of him, not behind. And regardless of Nkuku's shot going really wide, you still need to play that pass properly. You didn't do it. So it's a bit of both. I think he's got to be looking at himself as much as Maresca's looking at himself. But I do believe the quality is 100% still there. I have no doubts. It's just this season, it looks like he's not going to recover. And that, for Chelsea, is a massive issue. And let's not forget, he's only 22 years old. This is his first patch where he's in bad form. And he hasn't got 4 or 5 years of regular first-team football since he was 18, to kind of look back on and dig to find that kind of resurgence. This is the first time this has happened to him. So even mentally, this is a bit of a block maybe that's happening. This is something that he's got to get through. He's a player that when he's at his best, his confidence is clear. Everything's off the cuff. He doesn't overthink. He just lobs the keeper. He just goes around the keeper. He just nutmegs. He just twists some. Now he's overthinking. Very clearly for me, overthinking. He hasn't got that same kind of fluidity to his game. And hopefully it comes back in time. I don't have any worries, but yeah, there's a lot of things at play, I think, for him right now.
100%. I think his case is so unique as well. I can't remember another example in Premier League history of a player going from almost like a bench option at another top 6 club, moving to another top 6 club and looking like instantly one of the best players in the league and putting together a season like Palmer did. It was really unique. And I think, as you say, a drop-off is perhaps inevitable. And I think people are, when he's carried you for so long statistically and sort of mentality-wise and the belief he gives to that side, Chelsea fans and any fan base would panic, being like trying to overthink about what's exactly going wrong. I'm sure it will come back. Mikey, let's talk about some of the key positions that they could look to strengthen. And I know you looked at striker and I looked at goalkeeper. So which options do you think Chelsea might be considering this summer in terms of striker? And then maybe we get Matisse's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a really exciting summer for striker transfers. I don't think we've had one in many years. It feels like over the last kind of few summers that the conversation when it came to strikers was that there are none out there, or at least there are none out there for anywhere near an affordable price. And it felt like, clubs really have over the last few years had to prioritise goals from out wide. Whereas now there are a number of top strikers on the market. We've spoken a lot about Victor Osimhen. We've spoken a lot about Viktor Gyokeres, especially in relation to what Arsenal are potentially going to do this summer. Of course, Man United also on the lookout for a striker. Liverpool may well be looking for a centre-forward as well. And I guess with Osimhen, he said recently that he's going to make a decision soon about whether he wants to stay at Galatasaray or not. He's only got 1 year left come this summer on that Napoli contract. So you've got that 63 million pound release clause. But if you could come to Napoli and try and get a deal done quickly, there's the possibility, at least according to Fabrizio Romano, that you could get a better price on Osimhen as well, which I think is very, very tempting given his goal record, which has carried on, amazingly at Galatasaray, averaging 5 shots a game there. And then you've got Gyokeres, who, I don't know, more heavily linked with Arsenal. Would he fancy going to Chelsea if they're not in the Champions League? I'm not so sure. And then, there are tons of more options. I mean, Liam Delap at Ipswich, of course, could be available for £30 million this summer if they get relegated, as it looks like they will be. Jorginho Rutter's been, linked this week, hasn't he, with Chelsea? Again, I'm a little bit confused by that because he's not an out-and-out goal scorer. He plays kind of in the pockets where you have Cole Palmer. Doesn't really make an awful lot of sense to me. Also out until the end of the season with an injury. One player who hasn't really come up, who I expected to a lot more, is Victor Boniface. That failed move to Saudi in January with Al Nassr going for John Duran instead. Maybe the Saudi door will be open to him again, and maybe that's why we've not heard so much speculation. But if not, I mean, again, has suffered from a lot of injuries at Leverkusen, but otherwise has been one of the most clinical strikers in Europe and kind of does everything that you want, I think, from a Premier League striker in terms of running the channels, creating space for others, but also being able to, just be an absolute tour de force up top. And his record of 32 goals and 60 appearances since going to the Bundesliga suggests that he'd be able to adapt once again to a step up, adapted instantly to the Bundesliga from playing in Belgium. So, I'm kind of surprised we've not seen more from him and or more speculation about him. Is there, out of those options, who would you go for? And also, is there anyone else out there? Because I've not even mentioned all the strikers who.
It's a shame you didn't mention Isak.
I mean,
everybody wants Isak, and that's not going to happen for Chelsea. And I think if you used to ask Liverpool fans, who probably would look at a striker, Arsenal fans, 100%, Chelsea fans, everybody would want Isak purely because he's probably the least risk out of all of the options, because you've seen it in the Premier League and he can contribute to multiple facets of the game: drop deep, dribble, out wide, get the goals, variety of shots. All of those strikers have their own different strengths and their own different concerns as well at the same time. With Osimhen, it's the wages. Chelsea had this issue last summer when they were trying to do a deal for him. I don't think he's reduced that expectation of what he wants to make. We know Chelsea's wage structure is really tight. It's really structured, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it keeps players motivated. I think it stops you from getting into precarious situations where you can't move players on because they won't drop their wage or they haven't performed. So there are positives to that as well. But Osimhen is an absolute aerial threat, an absolute pressing machine. These are two things that Chelsea would either need more of or definitely could do with. When Pedro Neto is putting in those crosses, it would be great if someone was on the end of them, someone with an incredible leap. But then with Osimhen, sometimes I think, okay, is the link play maybe as strong as it may need to be in a possession-based system, the way Jackson is? So maybe there's a concern there. But for 63 million, you can't go wrong. Same with Gyokeres. For the price that he probably will move at, I think the price has dropped the expectation that Sporting want. He's an incredible goal-scoring form. Can you attract these kind of strikers without Champions League? I don't think you can. So then you're going down the route of maybe a Sesko or a Liam Delap, another young striker who will maybe bite at the opportunity to come to Chelsea because of the name, the stature, regardless of the league position and where they are actually competing in Europe.
Is that even necessarily a bad thing? Because I know Jackson has been in poor form and has been injured since the first half of the season, but we saw in those opening kind of 8 to 10 weeks the kind of striker that Jackson can be. Yeah. Do Chelsea necessarily need a clear upgrade, or do they just need someone who can almost just compete level with Jackson, offer something a little bit different to him perhaps?
I think this season for me was the time for Jackson to answer that question. He's been unlucky because he's had injury issues, but let's not forget, before those injury issues, he was in a barren run of goals, either goal scoring, poor form. He's on 9 goals. For me, it depends on Chelsea's aspirations. If Chelsea want to, which I think they should be aiming and aspiring to try and compete for a title next year, which, people will laugh, I think. But I'm just looking at that from the expectation of, okay, this is what you've assembled for this amount of money. These certain top players like Fernandes, Caicedo, maybe Palmer, Cucurella, they would like to challenge for the league. There's no doubt about that if you ask them and interview them. So why are we going to, cap off their kind of aspirations and ambitions to suit the rest of the team you've assembled? But with a Liam Delap or a Sesko or someone like that, they would be coming in to, I think, keep or get Chelsea into Champions League football if they don't get it this time. I can't see those guys coming in at their age and maybe having to acclimatise if you're Sesko, or Liam Delap coming from Ipswich and having a very good season. Great traits, works incredibly hard, runs the channels, got a decent strike on him, but he's not of that elite level that's going to propel Chelsea to a title race. So that kind of caps your expectation off. But it's a massive improvement because Chelsea don't have another striker. Mm-hmm. Chelsea have been competing all season with just Jackson. And Cuckoo's never been a striker. Every time he plays up front, it's almost like Chelsea are playing with 10 men. He looks uncomfortable. The team look uncomfortable playing with him as their focal point. He's always been someone that played in the pockets. He's going to move, I think, in the summer because the World Cup with France and to try and rejuvenate his career. Even if Chelsea were to add a Liam Delap or a Sesko, that maybe won't suffice the appetite of the fans, and I understand why. I'd like an elite striker. I'd like us to take a bit of a gamble, maybe a bigger name, someone with a bit more experience who can really wear the shirt and be a leader as well. The intangibles. I'd like maybe someone to come in and lift the rest of the team and lift the rest of the attack a little bit and help Cole Palmer lift it, which I don't know if those young players are ready to do. I don't think they are. But they are guaranteed to improve us just purely because we need numerically another option.
Big at Sesko there. I mean, there are plenty of Arsenal fans who are keen to sign Sesko this summer, and Arsenal are, I think Arsenal fans at large are expecting them to not only challenge but to win the league next season. And when you consider that, Chelsea are, taking more shots, creating more chances than Arsenal this season, even if, their shots are coming from further out, there are the building blocks there for a striker to come in and be able to score a lot of goals.
Yeah.
If they can improve on, movement in the box, if they can strike up a good relationship with the wingers. So I guess it feels like there needs to be a bit of a balance here in terms of, Chelsea feels unlikely that they're going to be able to get one of the 2 or 3 best strikers on the market in Europe this summer. But equally, if you can marry, getting a striker in from, that second rung on the ladder, and then improve the recruitment in the wide areas, then maybe you can spread the goals around a little bit more, and from that you expect that Cole Palmer will be able to get in better goal scoring positions too. But again, there's been so much money spent in the wide areas in the last few years that you question, you expect, there's the question there. Like, I feel like, Chelsea, as well as Esteval, maybe there's one more winger to sign this summer, and again, that's a lot of money to spend. So yeah, it's a funny one, and especially when goalkeeper and centre back surely need to be invested this summer as well.
Yeah, let's talk about a goalkeeper, because Djorde Petrovic had, I think, a fairly solid time when he was Chelsea's number 1 last season, but went to Strasbourg, and Strasbourg have had an amazing season. I think they're still in contention for direct qualification for the Champions League. I think they're only 3 points off second place Monaco. They're in 6th at the moment, and they've got the youngest squad in Europe as well, very much following the Chelsea model, of course, owned by Clay Lake Capital as well, which their fans really object to because they didn't want to become a feeder club. But their average age of their squad is under 22. It's absolutely crazy. And Petrovic has been a crucial part of their amazing season. He's kept 9 clean sheets. He's only topped by Lucas Chevalier in that respect. He's prevented 9 XG, which remarkably is only good enough for 3rd in France. I don't know what the French goalkeepers have been drinking this season, but it's absolutely incredible. So Petrovic is an option. I want to get your thoughts on him in a second. In terms of new players that could come in, I mentioned him just there, but Chevalier at Lille has been long linked to a move to the Premier League. I think he is a phenomenal shot stopper. His distribution and his ability to claim crosses isn't as strong as some other goalkeepers we've seen move to the Premier League in recent years. But then I feel like there's almost a bit of a counteract against distribution from the back in the Premier League, unless you're quite ready to do it, because we've seen Onana struggle with it at Man United, maybe not even allowed to really do it. And actually, I think the biggest difference you can get as a goalkeeper is just being a great shot stopper. Like Courtois, I don't think's ever been phenomenal with his feet. He's solid with his feet. Yeah. But the reason he is, for me, the best goalkeeper in the world alongside Alisson is because he's just phenomenal shot stopping.
But do you not think that it's just an absolute requirement if Maresca is to remain at Chelsea that the goalkeeper needs to be really good with his feet? And it's not just on the goalkeeper, let's add. Like it's kind of it's really on the players in front of him as well. I think that's why, I feel a bit sorry for Onana at United is like his ability with his feet has been diminished, but I think because he doesn't necessarily trust the players in front of him to be able to turn out and not lose the ball themselves, which leads him to make rash decisions himself. And whatever the shot stopping side of it, of course, has been awful from Onana's perspective in the last 6 months. But yeah, I just feel like that's going to be a prerequisite for this Chelsea team.
I think it will as well. And to be honest, having not watched 90 minutes of Chevalier every week, I can't say whether it's like a deal breaker for a top club.
And he's also super young, so like he can learn that, can't he?
He's Mike Maignan's understudy with the France squad, and his shot stopping is so good that I feel like there's almost such a big separation. And you look at Robert Sanchez, supposedly great with his feet, the amount of errors he's made this year, or the last 18 months, 2 years, is shocking, really. And Jorgensen's had a similar issue when he's been brought in as well. So whatever Chelsea are doing in their goalkeeping recruitment department hasn't worked out thus far. So maybe a change of direction. Also look at Mike Maignan as well. He's been talked about in terms of signing a new contract at Milan, but there's been no announcement over that. He is club captain, so that feels like a difficult stretch. And he's also been slightly more mistake prone than previous years, but he is still, for me, at his best, a top 5 goalkeeper in the world. Definitely someone worth considering. And then Diogo Costa at FC Porto as well. Been linked to a top club for a number of years as well. Very solid all-round shot stopper and very good with his feet as well. But then there's kind of the question marks of he's maybe not been tested at the elite level as much as a Mike Maignan has, although he does have more top-level experience, having been Portugal's number 1 for a number of years, than a Chevalier, for example. So those are the kind of names that we were thinking of, Matisse.
Yeah.
Do you want to see Petrovic given the number 1 jersey? Do you want to see someone else? Do you want to see... Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think Chelsea have signed so many goalkeepers under this ownership. It's probably 6, 7. If you're including Bettinelli's, and we're probably getting close to double digits. You know? It's incredible. Every single window, we have not failed to bring in some sort of goalkeeper, whether it's for the multi-club model or it's for the first team. I'd be crazy to not want to see Petrovic, at least in pre-season, just to get I think with goalkeepers, you can get a feel for, is that person good enough to do the job for number one? In quite a short space of time, they have, silly word, aura. They have a presence. They have a way about them. They're commanding. They're vocal. They claim their crosses. For me, I've grown up on Petr Cech, Courtois.
You're spoiled.
I'm spoiled, and now I'm suffering. You've got to be able to claim your crosses. You have to be able to command your box. You've got to be able to save shots, like you said. The save percentage for Sanchez isn't actually bad. I think it's always been up there in the Premier League, but he doesn't give you confidence as a fan, and the backline definitely worries about when his mistake is coming, because it's inevitable. You need a goalkeeper that doesn't do that. They calm everybody else in front of them down, not kind of rile them up. So I'd like to see Petrovic. He had a good base level when he was in his first season, considering the expectation. I had little to no expectation of him when he first arrived. And then that Strasbourg season is just incredible. Like he's done so well. He's having man of the match performances. He's making massive saves. His ball distribution seems to be improving as well. So I'd like to see him, because if we could find an in-house solution, not only do we save some money to maybe put resources into a left wing where I don't think Tyreek George is ready to kind of take that step up and be our left winger, right? So we need to put resources there for Sancho replacement, Mudryk, etc. Striker, there's going to have to be money spent. So you've got to try and save somewhere. The goalkeeper position could be that. Mike Penders is another goalkeeper in Belgium. A lot of people are really excited about. I remember when we had Courtois come from Genk and then we went to Atletico. Maybe there could be a similar storyline there. Chelsea might not have their goalkeeper situation absolutely sorted next season, but they might be on the road to recovery to sorting it, which I wouldn't mind. You know, I think the standard for goalkeeping at Chelsea right now is really low in the last couple of seasons. So as long as you are saving those shots, like you said, depending on if Maresca's over asking you to play out or he's asking you to do things that you're not capable of, that could obviously lead to problems. But there's going to have to be, I think, a little bit of a merge where we maybe dilute what we're trying to do a little bit to try and stabilize that position, because we can't be extremism ball playing if we don't have the quality to do it.
Let's talk about centre-backs before we wrap up the show, and then we're going to ask you one final question about Maresca. Centre-back. So Wesley Fofana is such an interesting case. I hadn't quite realised until I was doing a bit of research for this show just how many games he missed, even at Leicester.
Yeah.
And the fact he's played 34 games for Chelsea and coming up to what was the end of his third season, £70 million plus signing. It's just not looking good for him. And it's brutal because it's injury related. It's not quality related.
No.
But do you think there is a situation where, I mean, the future of Chalobah doesn't look very secure. The future of Tosin doesn't look very secure. Badiashile, Disasi, etc. Do Chelsea definitely need to go into the market for a centre-back this summer? Or are you backing, I don't know, a Tosin-Colwill partnership to come good, or Fofana to get back to full fitness? What are your thoughts in the centre-back area?
Yeah, Chelsea 100% need a centre-back. They have got a lot of B-side, C-side centre-backs that would actually partner up with a leader or a top centre-back and probably put that defence together a lot more sturdy and stable than it is. But because you put these kind of B-sides, C-sides together, like maybe a Chris Smalling and a Phil Jones, it was meant to be who's the A-side, it became none. You know, Chelsea have had it before where I've seen Tal Ben-Aim, but he's next to John Terry, you know. So you can have players that are not elite level defenders as long as they're next to someone of that level that can command and put people in the right positions and lead and be vocal. We don't have that. We don't have a leader. Back there, it's just anybody, anything goes. And I think Chelsea, it's a difficult market to find that in centre-backs. I really liked Araujo at Barcelona before, but then he had a lot of injury issues. Fofana's already got injury issues, but he looked like someone that was, you know, massive, aerially, big presence, quick. Used to get put at right back even to deal with Vinny 1v1 in the El Clasicos. I'm looking at, obviously, I mean, Bastoni, what a centre-back. That's the kind of level you need. Again, Chelsea will not be able to attract that level if they don't make Champions League. So they're, again, going to be forced into these names that they're young, they're prospects, they're potential. That's what they're attracting. But that's not what they need. They've got enough. They even signed Insamino in the January window. I think they brought him back from Argentina. Then he's left out the Conference League squad. He's now just playing the under-23s. Everybody's forgotten about him. But they were really excited because he's ball playing. And he's so again, like, they're even losing track of some of their own youngsters, their own young players. So for me, I think there just needs to be a bit of a cleanse. You've got to remove those kind of players that are taking up space. Like Disasi doesn't fit the team systematically. He's not quick, can't play in a high line, not really good enough on the ball either. He's a bit clunky, a bit clumsy. You got to move him on. You got to start. Tosin will be an easy pure profit. He came on a free last summer. So whoever you're going to move on, start to clear the path for. I think an Acheampong is a really good talent. I think he's got a frame. He's got a bit about him. He's come from the academy. The amount of great defenders I've seen come through Cobham, whether it be Lewis Hall, Livramento, Acheampong, I think has got a talent. Samuel Smith signed a new deal today. Chelsea have always produced good defenders from Cobham, Reece James, etc. So they've got to utilise that as well, go back to that, but then also try and top it up with some quality. But I just don't know if they'll be able to attract it.
Do you think someone like Dean Huijsen is, first of all, gettable, and would he be a priority for you? Like, given he is very young, but you're going to have to spend a lot of money on him.
Yeah, not for me. I just feel like if you're going to sign someone he's a really good talent, but he's just got more minutes and opportunities in an environment that is catering towards that. Chelsea's pressure, Chelsea's people are really, you're under the microscope. You're going to get every single little mistake you make. He's made mistakes at Bournemouth this season, but no one will pick up on it because, but with Chelsea, everything's under the microscope. Any mistake is criticised and ridiculed. And I feel like if you're going to bring in someone of a talent that's young, Acheampong is right there. He's right there. He can play right side centre back in the 3, which is Maresca's system. He's played right back in the academy. He's so tall. He's massive. He could definitely be a centre back, I believe, as well. I would just honestly give him those minutes as a squad player. I think if you're trying to get a starter, it's got to be someone who comes in immediately, almost like a Thiago Silva did on a free. And the leadership qualities are so clear, like a Rudiger, like the vocal, aggressive nature. Come on, you got to bring in that kind of centre back. That's got to be the profile they look for, as well as someone that's quick. It's got to be someone that ticks all boxes. It's not easy, but you look at Liverpool, Van Dijk, Konate, they tick all boxes. Good on the ball, quick, great in the air. Communicators, leaders. You need to tick every single box. If they don't tick every box, then there's going to be problems.
So what would be your ideal then? Colwill next to.
I don't even know if Colwill will be in there. He's struggled this season. I think Murillo at Nottingham Forest had a great season. As I mentioned, Bastoni, that's not going to happen. There's some really good left-footed centre-backs that have been, progressing. I feel like Colwill this season hasn't. That might be because of who he's partnered with, but again, he's got to take some responsibility. I think sometimes he's a bit weak. Sometimes he's
the Brighton game was really bad.
Yeah, like sometimes he's easily brushed aside. He's very good on the ball. He's very easy on the eye. Studs on the ball, playing out through the lines. Brilliant, unbelievable on the ball. But defensively, as a defender, sometimes I'm like, do you actually want to defend? Do you love defending? Are you a defender's defender? And I feel like sometimes the lines are blurred with him. He's a modern day defender. So I don't think anybody's position is guaranteed. But that Fofana that you mentioned earlier, that's a big problem because he's on big wages. He was signed under Todd Bowley, sporting director, so he's not on the same wage package as the rest. Massive fee. You're not going to get a return on that. And injuries. And because him and Lavia and James even, they provide that hope. If they are fit, then look. But they're not. So, oh no. So it's like they still take up a position financially and in the squad. And unless you move them on, you can never really replace them kind of thing.
Right. Final question. Matisse, what is your dream manager scenario going into the start of next season? Do you want to see, no matter what happens this season, Maresca in charge first day of next year in August? And if not, who do you want to see in charge?
My dream scenario is Luis Campos is the director and he chooses the manager.
Nice.
And I'm sorry to be...
bringing Luis Enrique as well?
Hey, he could do whatever he wants because he is an incredible sporting director and sporting directors have to align and choose their managers. I could mention any manager, but if your sporting directors are not in line with the manager's principles and the way of play and the profiles they need, and you just give them a mismatch, then that manager will sink, even if they're a top manager. So Luis Campos is the key for me because he's someone that's been there and done it, whether it's Lille, Rafael Leao, Osimhen, Nicolas Pepe, obviously big profit, Monaco, Bernardo Silva, Fabinho, PSG, look at his team now. He's responsible for that. He is such a football man. He's so clued up. He's so intelligent. He's so grassroots, but also modern. He's everything you want. And he knows how to build young teams. And that's what Chelsea are going to do. Chelsea, regardless of what anybody thinks or wants, they're going to build a young team. Just at least build the right young team. Build a team that's balanced. Build a team that makes sense, which they're not doing. Bring someone like that in and any manager he selects, I'm on board.
I love it.
Interesting. Very quickly, actually, just if there was a dream winger as well, who you'd bring in, like on that left side, because you spoke about it. I just don't want that position to be to go on.
The dream.
Unchecked.
The dream is not is it's a dream, right? It's not
Yeah.
gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. Rodrigo
Yeah.
at Real Madrid. I love Rodrigo. I just feel like at right wing, especially with obviously Vinny and Mbappe and Endrick and Gulla. I mean, there's so many players there. He's been getting his minutes, but if he ever wanted to be the main man, if he ever wanted to be the star of the show, to play at the left wing, where I just feel like his potential would just, go to the moon. That's the kind of wing I would love to have on the left flank for Chelsea. He adds goals. He's fantastic 1v1. He works hard as well. That's a key thing. He presses. He gets back into a 4-4-2 last season when it's Vinny and Bellingham as a two up front. So I just love everything about him. Barcola maybe is another one, just purely because obviously minutes are being shared at PSG, but I don't think that's realistic as he's just joined and also they rotate and everybody just
Maybe
moves
with
into
the
different
Campos through the
positions.
door. Though.
Yeah. So
Bring in Barcola too.
those are the kind of wingers I would love to bring in. Those would be the dreams. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Rodrigo to complete the move Robinho never did.
Literally,
Chelsea with that accidental move to Man City.
Wow.
Guys, thank you so much for watching the Lowdown for this week. Thank you massively to Matisse Broderick as well. Absolute star performance. Great to get your thoughts on various Chelsea positions, the manager situation as well. Matisse, if people haven't seen you before, where can they find your stuff?
Thank you. A pleasure. On YouTube, MAH, uploading videos there, streams, watch-alongs, all sorts. So that's 3 letters, easy to find, and that's where I am. Yeah,
that's where it is. Go and check it out, guys. Thank you so much for watching the Lowdown for this week. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.